Om Akhandamandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupaswarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakhyam Namami Bhaktashaktikam Namah Pankajanabhaya Namah Pankajamadine Namah Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajanghaye Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namo Brahmanya Devaya Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagadhitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Sarvebhyo Namaha Sarvesham Krite Swagatam. Welcome to this session. Today we are going to do the last 6 shlokas of the 8th chapter, shloka number 23 to 28. So over the past few weeks, we have been doing the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, and we've touched upon various thoughts that Sri Bhagavan has given us. Essentially, Sri Bhagavan pointed to the goal of life as trying to attain Him, trying to reach His abode and entering into our eternal existence, and suggested bhakti as the process, ananya bhakti. Earlier to that, he spoke about yoga mishra bhakti, how the process of Ashtanga yoga can be practiced. And towards the end of the process of Ashtanga yoga, one should, with one's mind absorbed in the mood of bhakti, with bhakti, one should contemplate upon Sri Bhagavan and then leave their body. If they do that, then they will be able to attain Him. Later on, he said, if one, instead of that, if one practices ananya bhakti, then he becomes very easy to achieve. So, in a very subtle way, Sri Bhagavan contrasts between Yoga Mishra Bhakti and Ananya Bhakti in the 8th chapter. Now, today, we ask the question, well, what happens to people when they actually manage to elevate themselves like that? How do they eventually reach Sri Bhagavan's abode? Is there some path involved? Do they immediately reach his abode? Or do they go through some kind of a process, a sequence of steps? So that is what Sri Bhagavan answers here. He says there are 2 paths. Those who have attained spiritual perfection, they will actually go through a particular path. And those who have not attained that perfection will go through a different path and then come back and be born again. Before we get into that, I'll do a quick recap of what we did in the very last session. Sri Bhagavan spoke about Brahma's abode, and he contrasted Brahma's state of existence, or Brahma's Brahmaloka, with his loka, Vaikuntha loka. Parastasmat tu bhavonyo, vyakto vyaktat sanatanaha, yassa sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu na vinashyati. So even superior to Brahmaloka, because in this universe, Brahmaloka is the highest state of existence. That is the best place to be if we have to be in this material existence. But even superior to that is the eternal abode of Sri Bhagavan. Because even Brahma's abode is not eternal. It lasts for a long time. It is filled with happiness. It's a very good place to be in. But in contrast to Sri Bhagavan's abode, it is nothing. It's temporary. Whereas Bhagavan's abode is Vaikuntha, which is eternal, which has no destruction. So, yassa sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu na vinashyati. Avyakta ityuktaha, that abode, that existence is also called as avyakta, it's called akshara. Tamahuhu paramam gatim, that is the supreme destination. Yam prapya na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. Having attained that state, one never returns to material existence. And that is my existence, Sri Bhagavan says. Purushaha sa paraha partha bhaktya labhyastvananyaya yasyantasthani bhutani yena sarvamidam tata. So that Supreme Person is obtained through ananya bhakti, bhaktya labhyastu ananyaya. Only through ananya bhakti one can attain Sri Bhagavan. And within that Bhagavan, he describes that within him, all living beings, everything is included inside him. Yasyantasthani bhutani yena sarvamidam tatam. And he resides deep inside us. So it's not easy to understand this, how everything resides inside him, but he resides inside everything. So he says, don't worry about it. When you get spiritual realization, you will understand what it means. But one thing that we should remember as spiritualists is attaining Sri Bhagavan is not looking for him outside. Right? Normally, when we think of going to God, what do we think? What comes to our mind? We think of going somewhere, like going away from our house, leaving everything and going somewhere, going to the forest, going to some mountain, going to some cave, or looking for him, looking up. Bhagavan upar hai. We look upwards, right? But actually, Shri Bhagavan is right inside us, deep inside us. We are the Jivatma. Inside the Jivatma is the Paramatma. He's always a part of us. He's always with us. So therefore, going to Shri Bhagavan, the process of yoga, in fact, it's not only in Bhakti Yoga, but any process of yoga is withdrawing from the outside world, withdrawing one's senses, one's mind from absorption in the outside world and entering the inside world, entering inside oneself and looking for him there. He's always inside there, and our job is to find him there and connect with him. So before we even go to today's 6 shlokas, I thought I'll give an overview of what is being conveyed in those 6 shlokas. So here we have, the first is the path of no return to material existence. So Bhagavan describes 2 paths in these 6 shlokas. The first is the one whereby that yogi doesn't come back to this material existence. So from Bhuloka, after he leaves his body, after leaving his body at what is called as death, the body dies, but the Jivatma never dies. So the yogi leaves his body and immediately after that attains what is called as the Agni Loka. Okay, so each of these, there are 12 different lokas that he passes through, and this is from the Chandogya Upanishad. So the first one is where Agni, the deity of fire, the presiding deity of fire, Agni or Jyoti or Archi, different names by which fire or flame or illumination, light is known. Okay, so this place where this deity is presiding, the yogi attains that level, that existence, which is higher than Bhuloka. Earlier we said there are 7 lokas of existence going upwards and 7 going downwards, right? So all of this is going upwards now. So more and more sattva, more and more knowledge. So he first goes to Agni Loka, and then the loka where the presiding deity of Ahaha, Ahaha means daytime. Ahaha, Ahan Shabda. In Sanskrit it is Nakarantaha, Napumsakalinga Shabda, neuter gender word, ending in. Ahaha is the Prathama Vibhakti. So Ahaha, that deity which presides over day. Okay, so I should now explain that everything in this universe, there is a presiding deity of that thing. Just like for Bhumi, right? We talk about Mother Earth, right? So one is when we say Mother Earth, we may refer to this physical object, the globe called as Earth, on which there's land, there's vegetation, there are animals, so many different things, right? We refer to that physical thing as Earth. But apart from that physical thing, there is a living being. That living being may be a Jivatma. Sometimes it's Vishnu himself who occupies that post. But there is a presiding deity who is in charge of the overall affairs and well-being of that earth. So we also refer to that presiding deity as Bhumi. When you say Bhumi, there is a presiding deity, and we conceptualize that deity as in a feminine form. Right? We think of it as feminine, that deity. The deity has a feminine form. So in the same way, for example, let's say there's a mountain, Himalaya. Okay? So Himalaya is a physical mountain. There's also a presiding deity called Himalaya, called him Himavan. And we said Mother Parvati, when she incarnated on this Bhumi, and she came as the daughter of that Himavan. So what do you mean by daughter of Himalaya? Can a human being or can any living being be a daughter of a physical object like a mountain? No, that's not what is being referred to. Referring to the person who is the presiding deity of that object known as Himalaya. That's what is being referred to. Okay, so the presiding deity of every object is what we also refer to when we use the name of that object. Likewise, in Mahabharata, for example, the beginning of Mahabharata is what? The story of Shantanu. And Shantanu goes and he meets Mother Ganga, right? He saw a beautiful woman, and then he comes to know that she is Ganga later on. So that woman, we say, is Mother Ganga. So again, we are not referring to the physical river Ganga then. We're referring to the presiding deity of that physical river, which is called Ganga. Right? So this way, everything has a physical presiding deity. And in this particular narration that we are doing today, 12 presiding deities are given. Each of them has a place of existence or a state of existence. And the yogi goes sequentially, one after the other, to each of these states of existence as he elevates himself from Bhuloka to Vaikuntha Loka. Okay, the first is the Agni Loka, the second is the Ahar Loka or Ahaha. The third one is Shukla Paksha, the deity of the bright fortnight. Shukla Paksha and Krishna Paksha, the lunar month. Each month has 2 fortnights. Shukla Paksha is that fortnight in which the moon is appearing bigger and bigger, right? As the moon moves around the earth and the earth moves around the sun. So these motions, they cause the moon to appear bigger and bigger for 15 days, about roughly 15 to 16 days, and then smaller and smaller over the next 15, 16 days. So as the moon becomes bigger and bigger, that's called the Shukla Paksha, that fortnight. So the deity of Shukla Paksha, where the deity resides, this person reaches there. The fourth place is the deity of Uttarayana. Uttarayana refers to 6 months in the year when the sun is in its northern movement. See, what happens is because the earth is inclined at a particular angle, it's about 23.5 degrees. We studied in school, right? It moves around the sun at being in that inclined position. And because of that inclination, the way it moves, from the earth, when you view the sun is never in the same level. It goes northwards. So increasingly, for example, right now, what is going on is a period called as Dakshinayana. Sun is moving southwards. Somewhere in June, Uttarayana changes to Dakshinayana. Again, somewhere in December, every 6 months it changes. In December or so, the sun starts moving upwards. And so when the sun is in the southernmost position, people in the northern hemisphere will experience winter. And people in the southern hemisphere, like people in Australia, for example, they experience summer at that time. So we experience summer at the end of the Uttarayana, towards the end of the Uttarayana, when the sun is in its northernmost position. It reaches somewhere near what is called in Western lingo as the Tropic of Cancer, right? So Uttarayana is the moment when it goes from the Tropic of Capricorn to the Tropic of Cancer. And Dakshinayana is the time when it goes from Tropic of Cancer to the Tropic of Capricorn. Okay, so the deity of Uttarayana, he goes to that place. Then he goes to the deity of the year, Samvatsara. Then the deity of the wind or air, it's called Marut Devata. Then the sun, the deity where the place called the sun, the Surya Loka, where Ravi or sun resides, Surya resides there. Then to the moon, the Chandra Loka, right, where the deity presides. So all these are considered, the sun, the moon, etc. They are all seen as higher states of existence. Okay. So is there life on the moon? That's a big question now being discussed, right? It's always been discussed. And now there's a rover there looking for life. So is there life on the moon? Yes, there always has been life, but we can't see it because the body, like I've explained in the earlier classes also, in different planets of existence, different places of existence, the same body that we have is not present. The Jivatmas are the same. The Jivatma is always of the same type. But the bodies are made of different elements. Here on this Bhumi, Prithvi, the body is made, our body is made of that element called as Prithvi, predominantly mixed with other elements like Jalam, Vayu, Kham, Agni, etc. Right? But on Surya Loka, body is different because with this body, you can't go to Surya Loka, you can't go to Chandra Loka. Right? So did man go to the moon? It's a big question. We'll discuss about it later. Okay? All right, Vidyut, lightning, the deity of lightning, Vidyut, he goes there. Then Varuna, the deity of water. And then Indraloka, where Indra, Purandara, currently the Indra's name is Purandara. Indraloka, he reaches Svargaloka. And from Svargaloka, he goes to Satyaloka, Brahmaloka, where Brahma resides, and he spends time with Brahma. So in each of these lokas, this Jivatma, who has elevated himself through yoga and bhakti, attains these states of existence one after the other. And all the time he is in bhakti. Because bhakti is the means by which you elevate yourself to Vaikuntha. Without bhakti, you cannot enter Vaikuntha. So finally, at the time that Brahma leaves his body, at the end of the day, he finally goes to Vaikuntha. He gets mukti and goes to Vaikuntha. So this is the path known as the Shukla Marga. Okay? And what happens to others? So here in this path, there is no return to material existence. Once he qualifies to enter this path, he doesn't have to take birth again and experience samsara. Okay, right? Okay. The next path is the path of what is also called the Krishna Marga, or the dark path. So from Bhuloka, he goes to a place where Dhuma, the smoke, the presiding deity of smoke, resides. Again, all of these are higher states of existence. These are not going down. He's not going down. He's going upwards. Okay. So these are people, for example, people who have performed yoga for some time. Okay, in the 6th chapter, for example, Sri Bhagavan is asked this question by Arjuna: what happens to a yogi who has not yet achieved perfection in his life? And Sri Bhagavan says, there's nothing to worry. He will not be lost. He will spend some time in higher planets because of the virtue of the good things he has done, the progress he has made in yoga. And after spending there for a good amount of time and enjoying the life there, living happily there for a long period of time, he will again take birth on earth. But when he takes birth on earth, he's given birth in a family where he can connect back to what he was done. His memory will come back. May not be memory of his past birth, but his samskaras will take him towards those spiritually elevating activities. So you do see sometimes people who at a very young age become attracted to spirituality, and they are very convinced that that is the path for them. They give up their, whatever major occupations they have, and they take up an occupation which allows them to pursue spirituality seriously, and they work towards that, right? So these are people who have not made it in the first attempt. They are now again going through. So they are going through, they go through these planets. Dhuma, smoke. The deity of night time. You see, the deity of daytime, the other person went. So now this person goes to the place where the deity of night time resides. Then he goes to the deity of Krishna Paksha. That person went to the deity of Shukla Paksha. This person goes to the deity of Krishna Paksha. Then he goes to the deity of Dakshinayana, the sun's southern movement. Then to the deity of Samvatsara. That person also went to the deity of Samvatsara. He also does that. Then to the deity of Pitraloka. Okay, so what is Pitraloka? Pitraloka is a place of existence where we say that those devatas who are in charge of the process of Shraddha and all the kriyas we do for our forefathers. You see, as human beings, we are supposed to perform what is known as Shraddha Karma or Pitratarpana as a matter of gratitude. One of the key values in our Shastra, in the Veda, in the Puranas, in Gita, in the Bhagavad-gi also is the value known as gratitude. Showing gratitude to other living beings, beginning with our own forefathers, our parents, their parents, etc., because of whom we have taken birth, because our parents are the ones who gave us this body. If our parents, were not there, then we would not also be there. Our body would not be there. Ultimately, every living being has some parent or parents through whom they have come into existence. And parents bring up their child, they give them education, they give them knowledge, they protect them, they take care of them. So gratitude. So gratitude not only to one's immediate parents, but to their parents and to their parents and so on. And that is an essential human activity. All human beings are supposed to do this. All civilized human beings do this, regardless of whether they are Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, etc. Okay, so now this process of offering tarpana to the Pitris has to ultimately lead to what happens when you do that. For example, when we offer tarpana, we offer water, we offer til, it's the same, til, we offer jaggery, etc., ginger, these kind of things are offered. Now, when we actually do the offering, what happens? The item is just present there. It doesn't go anywhere, right? Rice, we make rice balls, pinda, it's called pinda. And pind is offered. But in front of us, the pind is still lying there. So the question comes, what do you mean offering? The forefathers have gone and whatever you offered is just lying here. And at the end of the whole activity, you go and offer this in a river. You will put it into a river or a lake or the ocean, wherever, and it's gone. So what do you mean by saying it reaches the pitras? Now what happens is, it's explained in the Shastra, explained by the Acharyas, that when we do this, when we chant the correct mantras and make these offerings, that physical object does not go. But that energy passes through a process by which, wherever the pitras are, we don't know where they are, right? They could be in another human body. Or sometimes, if they have done some path, they could be in some narakaloka. They could be in some planetary system, suffering for their whatever path they have done. Or they could be in Swargaloka, enjoying something. We don't know where they are, right? Wherever they are, they will get that. They will get not that physical object that we offered, but they will get punya. They will get punya. They will get something by which their happiness will increase. Right? They will get something by which their state of existence will become better. And how that comes to them, they also will not know. And that is coming because of these activities. So these activities actually are giving them happiness without their knowing from where it is coming. It's coming because their descendant, some descendant of theirs, is making this offering year after year. Okay? Now there is a whole universal process that the Shastra describes, works and makes this happen. So that all living beings, they cooperate with each other. They exist with each other through this system of gratitude. Okay, now coming back to the question of who are the Pitra Devatas then? The Pitra Devatas are the people who manage this process. This process is run by these Pitra Devatas. Just like, for example, let's say you want to send a post. Okay, earlier we didn't have email, we sent physical post. And I don't know if any of you in your generation have you seen that. But in my generation, when I was young, for a long time, it was just physical letters. We used to write an inland letter or a postcard, and put that into a box, a red color box. And then after 3-4 days, that person will receive it, sometimes the very next day, wherever that person is. Right? Now, we don't know. As the person sending the letter, I have no idea what happens after it goes into the box. Physical letter goes into the box. But after it goes into the box, I have no idea. I can't see it anymore. I just go back. And suddenly, that person finds it in his box, his inbox. Right? And exactly the same way the email also works. Now, email is designed on the system of how the post works. So I send an email, I just press the send button. And after I press the send button, I have no idea what happens. So there are a set of people, or there is a system unseen to me, not visible to me. And there are human beings actually managing that whole system. Because those human beings are managing it, my email reaches the person to whom it is meant to reach. And suddenly that person to whom that email has been sent will see that email lying in his inbox. This is exactly how the Shraddha system works. So the Pitra Devatas are those unseen living beings who are managing this entire process. That's how it's explained. So Pitraloka is the place where these people reside. These deities, the deities who manage this process of Shraddha, they reside there. So I spent so much time explaining this because I thought some of you may want to know what it is. Then the deity of Akasha. Akasha means space. Okay, loosely we translate Akash as sky. But actually there's nothing called sky, right? There's only space. So Akash actually means space. Then Chandrama or Vidhu. In the previous shloka we said Vidhu, it's called Chandrama also. That's the moon planet. So the moon is, like I said, considered a higher planetary system. It is lower than Swargaloka, but it's higher than Bhuloka. And it's also a place of happiness. A lot of pleasure and happiness is present there. When you get the body which is required to be there. And finally, after living there for so much time, that person comes back to Bhuloka and takes birth again in Bhuloka. Okay, a few sessions back, we had talked about the Panchagni Vidya, also in the Chandogya Upanishad. That explains in more detail how this happens, how through different mantras he takes a body and finally reaches that Swargaloka or Chandraloka, wherever, and finally comes back to the earth. And while coming back, the process of coming back involves being in the rain for some time, in the cloud, in the rain, and then through the grains of rice that are eaten. These grains of rice are consumed by human beings or whichever living being. They go into the semen of the male, then go into the body of the female, the mother, and then finally takes birth. Okay, so that is the detailed process to which the people who are not successful, they make it. Alternatively, not only those who are not successful in yoga, there are many people who may not perform yoga at all. Okay, earlier in my sessions, I have covered how dharma was basically, we can divide all dharma into two broad branches, two broad streams. One is samanya dharma, the other is paradharma. Samanya dharma is what the majority of the Veda prescribes. In samanya dharma, the Veda teaches us how, by doing different kinds of punya, different kind of good dharmic activities, we can live happily in this material existence. We can take better birth in the future. We can, for example, we may have a desire to be born as a very intelligent person, a very knowledgeable person. And by performing dharma properly, we get a future birth as a very dharmic or a very, very intelligent, very knowledgeable person. We may have a desire to become a king, desire to become something. So a whole section of that dharma is called mya-karma. Mya-karma is those set of activities which are performed specifically with some particular material fruit in mind. One simple example of mya-karma described in the Shastra is the king Dasharatha performing the Putra Kameshti Yajna. He wanted to have sons. He didn't have sons. He only had one daughter, right, whom he had married off long back. And now he was growing old. He didn't have any son to take over the kingdom from him. And as a responsible king, he should hand over his kingdom to his son, right? So no son. So he performed this Putra Kameshti Yajna. So his own son-in-law comes, Rishyasringa comes to help him to do that, right? And we know this story. So that is a simple example of the Putra Kameshti Yajna or the Kamya Karma, what is called as Kamya Karma. Of course, in the case of Dasharatha, he is the father of Vishnu himself. So it is not done with material desire, right? He's a bhakta. But for the common man, same kind of thing. People do this kind of yajnas with such kind of desires, like I should have a good son who will do shraddha for me after I die. I should have a good wife. I should get a good wife. I should get a good husband. I should get riches. I should go to Swargaloka. Or sometimes even things like I should become more powerful than my enemies. I should be able to conquer their kingdom. All these are part of Kamya Karma. So even those who do Kamya Karma take a similar route. They go to these kind of planetary systems and then they eventually come back to Bhumi. So both for the yogis, so Kamya Karma is not part of yoga. Yoga means you decide to leave this material existence altogether. You want to elevate yourself to Vaikuntha. You want to get mukti. That is the meaning of yoga. Kamya Karma is not yoga. It is also yoga in a loose sense. You're connecting with the Shastra, you're connecting with Dharma. So in that sense, it is yoga, but it's not yoga in the sense of going to mukti, yoga which gives mukti. So these are the two parts that these last 6 shlokas of the 8th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita describe. Now, very quickly, I will take you to these 6 shlokas. In the 23rd shloka of the 8th chapter, Sri Bhagavan says, Yatra kale tu anavrittim, avrittim chaiva yoginaha, prayatayantitam kalam vakshyami bharatarshava. This, O Bharatarshava, I will now tell you, Yatra kale uses the word kala. Kala is used here as a metaphor for path. He spoke about 2 paths. So he's speaking about path. The word marga is not used, but kalaha is used. So why is that word kalaha used instead of marga? Kalaha means time. So why time is used here? Because the presiding deities that he speaks about, presiding deity of the daytime, the presiding deity of the Shukla Paksha, the presiding deity of the Daksha Uttarayana. So all these, the daytime, Shukla Paksha, Uttarayana, Samvatsara, they are all characterization of time. Right? So because he is using the presiding deities of time, so the metaphor time is used here. Utrakale tu anavrittim avrittim chaiva yogina. So I will now describe the 2 paths by which one can not return and one can return. Both of these are possible for a person who leaves his body. Agnir Jyotirah Shuklaha Shanmasa Uttarayanam Tatra Prayata Gachanti Brahma Brahmavido Janaha. So those who have got knowledge about Brahman, such people, they take this path, the path where the deity of Agni or Jyoti, they preside, the Agni of the daytime, the Agni of Shukla Paksha, the Agni of Shanmasa Uttarayana, 6 months of Uttarayana. And these people, they eventually attain Brahman. So this is the first path. After leaving their bodies, the yogis who know Brahman take the path presided over by the respective deities of fire and light, the day, the moon's bright fortnight, and the 6 months of the sun's northward movement, and thereby attain Brahman. Here in this shloka, only 4 or 5 deities are described, right? You can see that the deity of the fire and light, the daytime, the Shukla Paksha and Uttarayana. Only 4 deities are described here. But I showed you in my previous slide 12 deities. Okay? So these 4 are described in this shloka. They represent all the 12 together. They represent the path. The first 4 are shown. The other 8 are not shown here. They're described in the Chandogya Upanishad. So in the commentary of Baladeva Vidyabhushana's commentary, he elaborates. He says, he refers to Chandogya Upanishad. That's where I took it from. And he explains that in the shloka, because the Bhagavad-Gita is not as elaborate as the Puranas, it is brief. Krishna is speaking to Arjuna on the battlefield, and he has to now quickly convince Arjuna to start fighting, right? That's the purpose here. He's not there to give him a course on Vedanta. That's not the purpose there. So he just mentions 4. And similarly, Dhumo Ratris Tatha Krishnaha Shanmasa Dakshinayanam Tatra Chandramasam Jyotihi Yogi Prapya Nivartate. So Dhumaha, smoke, Ratrihi, and so on. The yogi takes the path presided over by the respective deities of smoke, Ratrikala, the night, the Krishna Paksha, the moon's dark fortnight, and the Shanmasa Dakshinayana, the 6 months of the Dakshinayana. And after attaining Chandramasam, Chandramasam is used as a metaphor, Chandraloka, for heavenly existence. He comes back. Chandramasam Jyotihi, Yogi Prapya Nivartate. He comes back to material existence. Shukla Krishne Gati Hyete Jagatah Shashvate Mate Ekaya Yati Anavrittim Anyaya Vartate Punaha. So Shukla Krishna, you see in this shloka, the dual number in Sanskrit is used. In the languages that we are normally used to, like English or Hindi, we have Ekavachan, singular. We have Bahuvachan, plural, right? Ekadmi, Bahuvadmi, or we say many, Bahutadmi. So we can distinguish between singular and plural. But in Sanskrit, there is one more number, and that is called dual number. Ramaha means one Rama. Ramau means 2 Ramas. And Ramaha, 3 Rama, multiple, more than 2 Ramas, or plural. Any number more than 2 is plural. Right? Balakaha, Balakau, Balakaha. Balika, Balike, Balikaha. So this way, dual number. In this shloka, because there are 2 parts which were spoken about. So Shukla Krishne, Gati, Gatihi is Ekavachanam, Gati, dual number, Dvivachanam. Shukla Krishne, Gati means 2 parts. Jagataha Shashvate Mate. In the opinion of this world, in the understanding of this world, these are considered to be 2 parts. Ekaya Yati Anavrittim. By one of those parts, one goes to Anavrittim, means doesn't come back. Anyaya Avartate Punaha. By the other one, it comes back. Naite Sriti Parthajanan Yogi Muhyati Kaschana Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Yoga Yukto Bhavarjuna. So he tells Arjuna now, look, a person who knows this very clearly, who understands this. Okay, this is the purpose of the Bhagavad-Gita. Bhagavad-Gita is teaching us that, first of all, this material existence is not our eternal existence. There is happiness here, but there is also misery here. There is something called eternal existence, and we should try to attain that. Attaining that involves the process of yoga. One should become seriously, one should become a serious practitioner of yoga. One should try to attain that. If one is not able to achieve perfection in one's life, then one will again take birth. So all this knowledge, one who knows all this, he says, yogi, such a person, na muhyati. He does not attain. Ete sriti partha. One who knows that both these options happen, both these paths happen, or both these paths are possible, will not become confused, will not become deluded. Okay? Normally, a lot of people, this world actually is a world of confusion. There's a lot of, question about, what is really the purpose of life. Some people ask this question. A few fortunate people ask this question. A lot of people don't. They will see, जो भी होगा देख लेंगे. जब होता है तब देख लेंगे. But those who ask this question, they encounter this confusion, right? They look for an answer to this. But one who knows this tattva that I am teaching now, Sri Bhagavan says, he will not have this confusion. It will be very clear. And therefore, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu, to really understand what I am saying, yoga yukto bhavarjuna, at all times, be a yoga yukta. Yoga yukta means one who is seriously engaged in yoga, all the time engaged in yoga. Become seriously engaged or be firmly situated in yoga all the time. Finally, in the last shloka of the 8th chapter, Sri Bhagavan concludes. He says, Vedeshu yajneshu tapassu chaiva daneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam atyeti tatsarvam idam viditva yogi param sthanam upaiti chadyam. So, just like I told you now, samanya dharma, paro dharma. Samanya dharma, people look for how to become materially happy. They perform mya-karma, they become very happy. What do? They do different things like they study the Veda, they do memorization and recite the Veda every day. Yajneshu, they perform different types of yajna. They perform tapasya. Tapasya means deliberately undertaken austerities. Austerities like fasting. I will fast for the whole. There's one vrata called the Chandrayana vrata, which follows the cycle of the moon. 15 days you reduce your eating during the Krishna Paksha. In the next 15 days, increase your eating slowly in the Shukla Paksha. For Chandrayana vrata, very, very severe austerity. Okay? Daneshu, they give dana, they do charity. Yet punya phalam. Why do they do all that? They do that because they will get punya. Why do they want punya? Because punya is just like, why do you want to get a higher salary? Because with that higher salary, you can get so many pleasures of life. Punya is like salary. Getting more punya means you have more bank balance. You have more credit points, which you can encash. Right? So punya is like that. Yet punya phalam pradishtam. Atyeti. But the yogi, he is not at all interested in all this. Atyeti means atikramati. He goes beyond that. That's sarvam, everything, all of this. Idam viditva, knowing all this, knowing whatever I am teaching in the Bhagavad-gita, knowing all this, yogi param sthanam upaiti. Knowing all this, he goes beyond all these things and he attains the param sthanam. He attains my abode. Okay, param sthanam has been described in the Bhagavad-gita as the abode of Bhagavan, where Sri Bhagavan resides. So adyam. Adyam means the original abode. That which is not created new. It's not like some new place that I have set up because you people are bored of this place. No, it's always existing. It's original. Knowing all this, the yogi rises above the desire for the fruits of piety punya that are obtained by studying and following the Veda, by worship yajna, by austerities tapasya, by charity dana, and attains the supreme original destination. So I will just quickly touch upon how Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti and Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan are concluding the 8th chapter. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti in the Sarartha Varshinitika, he says, Etat adhyayoktartha jnana phalamaha vedeshu iti. So what is the intention of saying this chapter or speaking this chapter or speaking the shlokas in this chapter? That is summarized in the last shloka, which begins with Vedeshu. Tat sarvam atyeti atikramya cha yogi bhaktiman tatopi sreshtam sthanam adyam aprakritam nityam prapnoti. So the 8th chapter has taught that bhakti is the process to attain Bhagavan, and attaining Bhagavan is the goal, is the worthy goal of life. So he says that is what is summarized in the last shloka of the 8th chapter. And he composes a shloka to conclude the essence of the 8th chapter. He says, Bhaktanam sarvataha sraishtyam purvoktam teshvapi sthitham ananya bhaktasya ityarthaha atra adhyaye vyanjito abhavat. Says Bhaktanam sarvataha sraishtyam. It is the bhaktas of Sri Bhagavan who are superior to all other kinds of yogis. Okay, in the 6th chapter also he concluded yoginam api sarvesham mad bhaktena antaratmanam shraddhavan yajate bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. So he is now re-emphasizing that among the different types of yogis, the bhaktas are the supreme, or the best type. Purvoktam Teshvapi Smutam. Whatever he had said in the 6th chapter, he is again now reinforcing that. He's making it more clear in the 8th chapter. Ananya Bhaktasya Ityartha. And that too, not just any Bhakta, but the Ananya Bhakta, who has no desire other than the desire to make Sri Bhagavan happy, to do what Sri Bhagavan wants. And that is what is being told in the 8th chapter. Iti Sarartha Varshinyam Harshinyam Bhakta Chetasam Shri Gitasu Ashtamodhyaya Sangatah Sangatah Satam. Thus, the Sarartha Varshini Tika, which gives pleasure to all the bhaktas, has now been written by me. And this is following the commentaries of the earlier scholars, the earlier acharyas. Their vyakhyas have been followed in writing the Sarartha Varshini Tika. Now, Sri Baladeva in his Gita Bhushana Bhashya says, Saptama Ashtamadhyaya Dvaya Jnana Prakaramaha Vedeshvati. Essential knowledge of the 7th and 8th chapters together has been summarized here in the last shloka. Vedeshu. Vedeshu means Brahmacharya Guru Shushrushanadi Vidhina Samyag Adhiteshu Sarvanga Upasamharena Samyag Anushkiteshu Tapassu. Samyag Anushkiteshu. Vedeshu means that people earlier, the Brahmana, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, they used to stay with the Guru. And they used to be taught the Veda, how to chant the Veda. Of course, the Brahmanas had the adhikar on learning the Veda. They were supposed to learn and teach the Veda to the others. But to some extent, the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas also were taught. They were given certain mantras, they were given exposure to the Vedas, and they were also taught how to perform yajna, how to do different kind of acharan, Vedic acharan, with the Guru. So living with the Guru and learning all this Vedadhyayan, is what is referred to as Veda, Vedeshu. Tapassu, the word tapassu refers to Shastrokhtena Vidhina, Samyak Achariteshu. So doing tapasya not arbitrarily, not randomly, but doing it in accordance with the Shastra. Daneshu. Daneshu refers to Desha Kala Patra Parikshaya Shraddhaya cha Samyak Datteshu. Dana is not given to, not just putting something, giving to a beggar. Okay? So if we can give to a beggar, nothing wrong with that. You can help somebody who is in distress, somebody is suffering, giving them some help is a good thing. But dana, as the word dana means, which earns punya in the Shastra, that word dana specifically refers to giving charity, giving something in charity, giving the right thing to the right person at the right time, at the right place, by chanting the right mantras in the correct manner. Okay, there's a process for giving charity also. It's not just taking some old thing and dumping it on somebody. That is not dana. Okay, that word dana is used today for that. Have some old clothes in the house, just push it out. There's some cobbler, somebody here, there, give it to them, clear the house. We got place for all our new clothes, right? That with that intention, when it is done, that is not dana. That is not called dana. So daneshu, desha kala patra parikshaya shraddhaya, with the shraddha. Not with the intention to clean up the house, but with the shraddha that by giving dana, it will do good to everybody. It will do good to me, it will do good to that person also. That is called dana. Yat punya phalam, swarga rajyadi lakshanam pradishtam uktam. Tat sarvamatyati atikramati. So all that, when the person comes to yoga with the knowledge of paradharma, that person goes beyond this kind of thinking. The mentality completely changes. Pim kritva ityaha idamiti. Idam adhyaya dvayoktam bhagavatah mama madbhaktescha mahatmyam satprasangena viditva tat vedana sukhatiriktam tat sarvam trinaya manyate ityartha. So he says that in these two chapters, the 7th and the 8th chapter, by Sri Bhagavan, mama means of Bhagavan, madbhaktescha mahatmyam satprasangena viditva. Understanding the greatness of my bhakti in the company of the saintly people, Okay, the greatness of bhakti is not just understood by reading a book. Well, by reading a book also we understand to some extent. But to really appreciate the greatness of bhakti, one should have the association of other bhaktas, those who are doing bhakti, those who are seriously doing bhakti. So when we are in their association, that's called Sat Prasanga. In that Sat Prasanga, we learn what is bhakti and appreciate the true value of bhakti. And Tat Vedana Sukhati Riktam Tat Sarvam Trinaya Manyate. So all the happiness and misery of kamya karma, he considers as just like a blade of grass. He's no longer interested in it. Like you say, वो सब किच किच है, उसमें अभी कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं, बिल्कुल इंटरेस्ट नहीं, इसमें आ गया. Trinaya manyate. Trinaya means he treats it like a blade of grass, like grass. Trinam means grass. Okay, it becomes as insignificant as that. Tato yogi mad bhaktiman bhutva. So thereafter he becomes bhaktiman. He develops bhakti to me, and bhutva adyam anadi paramamayakam matsthanam upaiti. Adyam, original. Anadi, that which has no beginning. Paramamayakam means the place of supreme love. Maya here is used in the sense of affection. Maya also means kindness. Maya means kindness, right? Being kind to somebody, showing him Maya. Being affectionate to somebody is also showing Maya. So that Maya is not used in a negative sense, like we say illusory Maya. It's used in a positive sense. Be kind, show some Maya. So Parama Mayakam Sthanam, which is the place of supreme affection. That is Sri Bhagavan's abode. The love that is present in Bhagavan's abode, it's not matched by any other form of love. That love is the supreme love. Okay, that's Sthanam. That Sthanam, that place, this person, the Bhaktiman, he attains that place. So in the last class also, I touched upon the concept of ananya bhakti, and I showed you this shloka in the last class, right? If you recollect, where Sri Rupa Goswami has written the shloka, Kleshagni Shubhadha Moksha Lagutakrit Sudhurlabha Sandhrananda Visheshatma Sri Krishna Karshini Chasa. The 6 outcomes of bhakti, Kleshagni Shubhadha Moksha Lagutakrit Sudhurlabha Sandhrananda Visheshatma Sri Krishna Karshini. How by performing bhakti gradually, in the initial stages of bhakti, we experience some relief from misery. It gives us, a better state of mind. We feel happier, we feel lighter, we feel that some kind of anxieties have gone away from us. We feel hopeful. For those who are feeling hopeless, some people feel depressed, and that brings them to bhakti. They take shelter of bhakti because they don't know where to go. It's like desperation. So someone gives them bhakti, Bhagavad Kripa comes in the form of bhakti. Someone says, okay, do this. Become attracted to it. They start doing it, and then they start feeling hope. They start seeing that, okay, there is something here. There's something valuable here. So Kleshagni and Shubhadha, good things start coming in, and bad things start going out. Moksha Lagutakrit, when one becomes more knowledgeable, understands that there is something called as moksha, then bhakti makes moksha look very insignificant. Even the thought that I should not be born again, I should not get janma again, even that looks insignificant. And that looks, why should I think about that? What is the greatness about not being born again? If I have bhakti, even being born again is the same. Whether I'm born again or not born again in this material existence. If I have bhakti, then it doesn't matter at all. Okay, Sri Mahaprabhu in the Shikshashtakam, the shloka, he says, Na dhanam, na janam, na sundari, kavitam va jagadisha kamayi. Mama janmani janmani ishware bhavatat bhakti haitu kittvai. I don't want great followers. I don't want a lot of wealth. I don't want a beautiful woman. I don't want a lot of fame as a scholar. What I want is just birth after birth. Please give me your bhakti. Let me be born any number of times. Let me be born as a tree. Let me be born as an insect on a rock. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want, I will take that birth. That's okay with me. But please give me your bhakti. Please let me have your bhakti all the time. In all my future existence, let your bhakti be with me. So moksha laguta, sudurlabha, and that's why it's very rare, because even to get this mentality is not common. Right? It's easy to know about bhakti, it's easy to start doing bhakti, but to develop this kind of mentality, is very rare. Of course, if somebody is serious, then it's very easy. So Bhagavan says that in the 8th chapter, it becomes very easy for him. Sandrananda Visheshatma, it bestows very intense form of happiness. Happiness that is not merely relief from misery, but far greater than that. Initial happiness is that relief from misery. Right? Absence of misery is happiness, initially. But beyond that, misery, if one person for a long time does not experience any misery, then he gets used to that happiness also. But here, Sandrananda Visheshatma, from inside, waves of happiness start coming. And that happens because one is extremely pure. One develops a very strong desire to only do that seva and take nothing for oneself. Perfection of bhakti means that everything is for others, nothing is for me. And to get that state of mind is a very elevated state. Okay, that one cannot imitate that. One cannot pretend to have that state. Because after hearing this, it's very inspiring. So one may start now thinking, I'm also like that. But just by thinking like that, I'm also like that, one doesn't become that. One has to practice bhakti. One has to practice the bhakti sadhana for sufficiently long time in the company of the bhaktas. One has to serve one's guru. One has to serve other bhaktas in the company of one's guru and the guidance of one's guru. And then one gradually develops this. And that should happen naturally. And only when it happens naturally, it is really substantial. Otherwise, it's just imaginary. It's just flickering. It goes away after some time. It doesn't last. It's called abhas. Right? And then what happens? When one reaches that state, Sri Krishna Karshini Prasad. Then Krishna becomes attracted to them. Okay, one switches from the state of being attracted by Krishna. That, of course, remains. One is always attracted to Krishna. But now, in addition to Krishna being one's object of attraction, one becomes Krishna's object of attraction. Krishna now seeks out that person. Okay, just like Krishna seeks out Radha. Radha is not just some ordinary girl. Radha is a person in that state of mind, who has that state of mind, whose bhav is always about serving others. The seva of the seva bhav, bhav of pure seva. Krishna Karshini Prasad. Okay, some sessions back, I recollect telling you the story of Sri Madhavendra Puri. You recollect that, any of you?
Yes, sir.
You do?
Madhavendra Puri.
Do you like to hear it again?
Yeah, yes, sir. Definitely.
All right. So I'll tell you a particular portion which came to my mind, where Sri Madhavendra Puri was a great scholar, a saint and a scholar who lived in the 15th century. Okay? He lived in the 15th century before the time of Mahaprabhu. And his disciple, Madhavendra Puri's disciple, Ishwara Puri. Madhavendra Puri had several disciples, several sannyasi disciples. He himself was a sannyasi. And he had many, many other sannyasis who were his disciples. And one of them was Sri Ishwara Puri. Ishwara Puri was the guru of Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who took sannyas from another disciple of Madhavendra Puri called Keshav Bharati. So Ishwara Puri and Keshav Bharati were two disciples of Madhavendra Puri, and both of them were also great scholars. So the story goes that Madhavendra Puri, he discovers by Sri Bhagavan's arrangement, Sri Bhagavan comes to him in a dream and reveals to him one of his own deity forms in one of the forests of Vrindavan, in Rajbhumi. There are many, many forests which used to exist at that time. Now many of them have been cut down, but still some exist in some form. So in one of them, in one of the Kunj, he discovers a deity of Krishna. Krishna comes to him in a dream and tells him that I'm lying down. So that deity he takes out of the earth and then he establishes a temple on Govardhan, because this happens near Govardhan Parvat. So he builds a temple for the deity on the Govardhan Parvat and he begins its worship. And again, after some time, that deity appears to him in a dream and tells him, Madhavendra, look, now it is summertime here. And summertime in Vrindavan, like in Delhi, in those parts of northern India, is extremely hot, extremely unbearably hot. Right? I don't know how many of you have experienced it. We have, of course, Apeksha from Delhi, but many others who have not been there won't understand what I'm saying. Even in the, in the middle of the night at 2 o'clock in the morning, there'll be hot air blowing. You can't sleep at night unless you have an air conditioner or something. It's extremely hot. So Sri Bhagavan is now feeling that heat. The deity, Madhavendra Puri, has established, is worshipping the deity. He says that, look, Madhavendra, you seem to be worshipping me very well, but there's one thing that I'm still not satisfied. Can you help me to get some relief from this heat? Please bring some chandan for me. And the chandan is present in Odisha. In Odisha, there is, even today, there is sandalwood farming, sandalwood cultivation. So can you bring this chandan from Odisha? Malaya, okay, Malaya Parvat. So Madhavendra Puri, dutifully, he comes here. He comes to Odisha from Vrindavan. And as he is on the path, a lot of things happen, so I won't go into those details. But he reaches a place in Odisha. It's located about 200 kilometers from here, from Jamshedpur, where we are now. It's a place called Remuna. And in Remuna, which is actually a historical place, for a long time, there has been a temple there called the Temple of Gopinath. Okay, and worship there, the Temple of Gopinath, the Temple of Krishna, has been worshipped. Krishna has been worshipped as Gopinath there. So in that temple, there's a speciality. Lot of bhog is offered to the deity there. Very, very delicious bhog. Okay, different types of items are cooked and offered to the deity. And one particular item is very special in that particular temple, and that is known as Amrita Keli. Amrita Keli is a particular kind of kheer, condensed milk. It's made of milk. You boil milk for a long time, add sugar. It becomes very condensed and rich and thick. And when you do it in a particular way, it gets a certain kind of exotic taste. Okay, so in that particular temple, that Amrita Keli, which is made and offered to Shri Bhagavan, is famous. Even today, it is famous. So that place is known for that. And Madhavendra Puri, as he is having darshan of the deity, he comes to know that this kind of prasad is made, this kind of bhog is made and offered here, and then given to the devotees as prasad. So as he comes to know about this, even as the bhog is being offered, in his mind, a thought comes that how nice it will be that even without my asking, somebody comes and gives me a little bit of this prasad. And I'll then be able to understand, I'll be able to figure out how this can be made and offered to my Krishna in Vrindavan, the Krishna that I am worshipping in Vrindavan. I would like to learn how this is made and take it back. So he thinks like this. And shortly after he thinks like this, he feels I have committed a very great aparadh. Because Madhavendra Puri, you see, was a sannyasi of the order of what is called as Paramahamsa. It's a very, very high level of sannyasi, where they take a vow that they will not even ask or desire anything for themselves. First of all, they will not ask anything explicitly to anyone. Now, there are earlier stages of sannyas in which the sannyasi goes with a begging bowl, and he's called a bhikshu. He goes and asks for alms. He goes to a brahmana's house during the time when the food has been made, and then stands outside, and the brahmana comes and gives him something to eat. The brahmanas realize that if they feed the sannyasis, they will get punya, they'll be happiness. It's their responsibility to take care of the sannyasis. The sannyasis therefore go to the brahmanas' houses. They collect their food and they go and eat that food. So they learn to beg and eat. And that's considered a great thing because before he became a sannyasi, he was cooking his own food. Right? He had a wife. She was making food for him. But now he's begging. So it's a great thing. But even greater than that is a state where you don't even beg for something. You just, if something comes, I will accept it by itself. And I will accept it only if I need it. Otherwise, if somebody just comes and gives me something, I will not take it. But what if somebody does not come at all? What if nothing comes to me? And then I will just fast. I will just take it as Sri Bhagavan's intention that nothing is meant to come to me today. So if no food comes for today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, for a whole week, then I will just live. If I have to die, I will die. Because my body, my life is meant for Bhagavan, for nothing else. So that is the state of Paramahamsa, where they don't even beg, and they don't even desire. The mind should not even desire for anything. It's not only that externally you don't beg, but in the mind you're thinking, okay, it's now 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's time that they will come, that boy will come. Every day he comes at this time. Okay, so then you keep looking and saying, okay, he's not come, but must be coming. Another 15 minutes, he will definitely come. So this kind of thinking that somebody will come and give me something, somewhere I will get something. Let me go and sit there outside the temple. Somebody will put a coin. That thinking also is not there. Even the desire that I should get something, that mind has become so pure. The only desire is to do something for others, nothing for myself. Nothing should come to me. Right? That state. So Madhavendra Puri is a person in that state. But now, what happened? Now, in the temple, in front of the deity, when the bhoga was going on, this desire came in his mind that somebody may come and give me. Let me hope that he started hoping that somebody will come and give me some bit of that prasad, which I will taste. Then I will learn how to make this. So immediately he starts feeling regret that I've done a very great offense. He feels very bad about it. He feels extremely bad about it. And so after the puja is over, he goes back. He's not staying in the temple, he's staying in the village. There's a village about 2 kilometers from the temple. Even today it's there. He goes there and he stays there. Then what happens here? Here, the priest, after he has offered the bhoga to the deity, he finds that all the pots which he offered have not come back. Normally, everything that you offer as bhog, all of it is taken back, all of it in quantity, physical quantity, nothing changes, right? You offer a plate of food to Sri Bhagavan, and you understand that Bhagavan actually takes that food, but in physical appearance, that food remains the same. In quantity, in its mass, it remains the same. You don't see it has come down, right? And we don't doubt whether Bhagavan had it or not. We believe that Bhagavan can have food without diminishing its quantity. Bhagavan actually had all of it. He enjoyed it, but he left all of it also for us. That is his potency. But now, here, this priest finds that I offered n pots, but n minus 1 have come back. One of them is missing. So he wonders what happened to that one. Where did it go? He searches, but he's not able to find it. Maybe he thinks, maybe I offered only n minus 1. He leaves it. He forgets about it. And he goes. In the night when he's sleeping, he has a dream in which that deity of Gopinath appears to him. The deity says, look, get up from your sleep, take a bath, go to the sanctum where I'm standing, and below my foot, you will find that I have taken one pot. So he wakes up all of a sudden. He has never had a dream like that. And he wonders, how did this happen? Is it real, or is it just because I was thinking about that pot, this dream came? Right? Sometimes it happens, no? You're thinking about something and that thing comes in the dream. So he thinks maybe because of that, but he says, no, this dream must be true. The way it happened, it's so real. It's not false. So he gets up, he goes, he has a bath and goes inside the sanctum. He goes to the spot which the deity had pointed out and he finds a pot there. And immediately he's in ecstasy. He says, what is this? Shri Bhagavan has stolen a pot. And Shri Bhagavan says in the dream that, look, I did this because there is a bhakta of mine, a great Paramahamsa bhakta, Mahan Bhakta, Mahabhagavata is here. He came to see me today. And I have taken this for him. This is only for him. Please go find him. He is staying in the village. His name is so-and-so. Please go, meet him and give it to him and tell him that I have taken it for him. So priest does that. He goes and gives it to him. And Madhavendra Puri is in complete ecstasy. He says, I can't believe this. Shri Bhagavan has done this for me. And of course, after this incident, that deity's name changed from Gopinath to Khirachora Gopinath. Now the temple is known as the temple of Khirachora Gopinath. In Odia, Kshira is called Khira. The Khira is called Khira. Yeah, I mean, in Hindi also Khir we say, right? In Sanskrit, it's Kshira. Kshira becomes Khira in Odia, Hindi, and so on. So Khirachora Gopinath. And the temple today also you get that Khir, and that Khir is even more famous than it was before because of Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri, of course, because of that incident, because he was a Paramahamsa, he didn't want to stay there anymore. The very next morning, he gets up very early in the morning and he realizes that if I stay there even for a moment more, then I'll become famous. I'll get famous. Everybody will come to see me. They'll want my darshan, my blessings. I don't want. Just leaves that place. Just goes away. He goes to Puri. And Puri was where he wanted to go. He wanted to bring that Chandan from Puri. So he goes to Puri. So that story ends there. And there's a lot more in the story. And before I conclude that story, I should also tell you that the deity of Krishna, which Madhavendra Puri worshipped in Vrindavan, continued to be worshipped there for some more time. It was after some time, it was worshipped on the Govardhan Parvat, and then it was brought down for some reason to the foothill of Govardhan, foot of Govardhan, where there is a town called Govardhan. Today also there is a town called Govardhan there, and a lot of temples are there. It was worshipped in one of the temples there for some time. And then little later, around that time, the Muslim rulers, that Mughal rulers became extremely aggressive at the time of Aurangzeb and so on. So Aurangzeb, he launched attack on Mathura and Vrindavan. So at that time, the deities were taken out of Vrindavan. Along with that, this deity also was taken into Rajasthan. And then south of Rajasthan, it went all the way to the south of Rajasthan to a place near Udaipur, in a place called Nathadwara. It resides there today, and it's called Srinath. Srinathji. Some of you might have heard of the famous temple of Srinathji in Rajasthan, Udaipur, near Udaipur. It's in a place called Nathadwara, which is about 50 kilometers north of Udaipur. And it is very, very famous. It's a famous pilgrimage spot in Rajasthan. And every year, it is said to be the second richest temple in India. That much wealth it attracts from the bhaktas who come there. Lots and lots of bhaktas go there. And of course, the first richest temple we all know is Tirupati, right? It's also a Vishnu temple. And this is the second richest temple. So this deity is the same deity that Madhavendra Puri was worshipping. And today it has become Srinathji. It's known by the name of Srinathji. So this is how Krishna Karshini, when Krishna becomes attracted to that person, Krishna sees the purity of that person as so great that Krishna thinks that this person is my role model. I should be like him. I should worship him. He is my worshipper. Okay? And that is the goal of bhakti, to develop that mentality. Of course, the goal is not that Krishna should worship us. That's never the goal. The goal is that I should develop that mentality that is so pleasing to him. It gives him so much happiness when we have that kind of mentality. So bhakti, the process of bhakti, which is the highest form of yoga, is a process of a change of mentality. It is not a change of physical location or throwing away our possessions, nothing like it. It's about developing a mentality which is like this. So for today, I will stop with this, and we will talk a lot more about bhakti in the next chapter onwards. Next chapter is the 9th chapter, where the discussion on bhakti becomes more intense, and the 10th chapter even more, and 11th chapter and 12th chapter. So as we begin the 9th chapter in the next class, we will talk more about this, and we'll talk about bhaktas also in the Bhagavad. I'd like to hear your questions and also have your comments. Yeah, Sarthak. Yeah.
So, in the previous session, we had talked about the different lokas. So, Dhruva lokas, Swarga lokas, and other lokas. So, what is the difference between these lokas and
these fall in some of these? Those are categories. Bhurloka, Bhuvarloka, Swargaloka, Janaloka, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapoloka, Swargaloka. They are all categories of lokas. So within them there are layers. There are layers of existence. So all of these will fall somewhere in those layers within these lokas.
So, Agni
Lok will be somewhere in Bhuvarloka or Swargaloka, with the lower layers of Swargaloka,
okay.
like that. So when I say Indra Swargaloka, it would be the highest in the Swargaloka. The highest level of Swargaloka is where Indra stays. He is the king of Swargaloka. Like that.
So all of these would fall into anywhere in
these lokas, yes. All of these fall there. Yes. A planetary system, just like we say solar system. In Western lingo, we say solar system, which consists of the sun and so many planets going around the sun. So it's like that. So each loka is a system of states of existence. Those online? Do you have any questions? Those online?
So no question as such. But just this observation, I mean, we discussed it earlier also. I think, the Lord goes a great distance to protect the devotees when they surrender. So the Lord did not mind stealing the Khira for Madhavendra Puri Prabhuji, and he knew that if he steals Khira, the whole world will tell him Khira Chora, like because he steals the kheer, but he did not mind that because he was in love with Madhavendra Puri. So yeah, I'm just amazed by these qualities of the Lord, sir. This is so interesting. And the love, Krishna has for Radha, and the way you just described it, that was also very fascinating, sir. So I enjoyed listening to that.
Yes. And so the leelas that he creates, he performs leelas, not only those leelas which are described in the Puran, Mahabharata. The Bhagavatam, for example, the Dashamaskanda of Bhagavatam, 90 chapters, there are scores of leelas of Sri Bhagavan there, written there, right? So that is in the Purana, and someone may say that, okay, these are somewhat mythological because they happened so many years back, and even if they were real, we can't relate with them today. Like Bhagavan playing his flute and dancing. But then we have leelas which are happening even now, like this, in this form, which are happening, which are contemporary in our times, like okay, just 500 years back, 600 years back. But these
Yes.
leelas are, these are real leelas. These are experienced by people and historically written down. Okay.
Yes.
And Sri Bhagavan in different forms, he performs these leelas with different kinds of bhaktas. We hear these. I mean, actually, to come to know about these leelas, every place in India, there's so many temples, historical temples, which have existed for thousands of years. Sometimes, thousands, but many of them hundreds of years at least, if not thousands, at least hundreds of years. I remember visiting a temple in Tamil Nadu. It's temple of goddess Durga, actually, not Krishna temple, but temple of goddess Durga, Bhavani. She's known as Bhavani there, and it's in the bank of Kaveri River, which enters Tamil Nadu from Karnataka. And it's in a place it's a place called Erode. This temple is a very beautiful temple. It's located just on the bank of Kaveri. I think it's in between two streams of Kaveri. It's very beautiful. And when I went there, I just had darshan and everything, and I was coming out. The temple itself is very beautiful, so it feels very good to be there. And the deity is, again, very nicely. In all Tamil Nadu temples, the deities are very grandly ornamented. The ornamentation and the worship is very grand. So I was coming out, I saw a big plaque on the wall made of granite. And there was a story on that plaque. It's so beautiful. Those days, mobile phones were not there. So I remember reading that story and narrating it to others. This happened something like roughly 200 years back, 200 years from now, roughly 200 to maybe 150 to 200 years back, when India was under the British rule. And the British had appointed governors, their own governors and collectors in different parts of India to collect tax and to do administration. So there was one collector, the district collector, who was living very close to the temple. In the vicinity of the temple, his bungalow, the collector's bungalow was there, the Britisher, an Englishman. And these Englishmen, they were generally, by and large, they were at peace with the Indian culture. They didn't destroy temples like the Mughals did. Mughals were like hell-bent on destroying wherever it was, and we know all that. So the British were more at peace with the temple, and they were okay with it, and they took part in sometimes temple festivals, activities, and stuff like that. So this particular collector, he had a very amazing incident, and this incident is put there on that wall. That once he was lying down in the monsoon season, he was sleeping in the afternoon time inside his bungalow, very quietly. And all of a sudden, someone wakes him up. Someone just wakes him up very rudely. Okay? And he doesn't know who. So he says, "Who is it?" He just gets up and says, "Who is it?" And he's very annoyed and disturbed. So he gets up. It's raining, cats and dogs outside, intensely raining outside. He gets up and he goes to see who has woken him up. He can't see anybody in his room. So he goes out. And then in the front door, he sees a small girl running out of the door. So he stopped. He's not seen that girl before. This young maiden is going out. He says, "Stop, stop." So he realizes she must be the one who has woken him up because nobody else in the house. So he goes behind her. He wants to ask her, why did you wake me up? But she doesn't stop. She doesn't look back also. She just keeps walking. And then he goes behind her. He says, I have to ask her to stop. And just after he leaves the house, a few steps after he leaves the house, there's some big rumbling sound, a big thunderous sound, as if some lightning or thunder has hit the bungalow. And the whole bungalow in front of his eyes comes crashing down. It just crashes down to the earth. It's just raised down in front of him. So he's shocked. He's shocked. So he then says, my God, what a coincidence. This girl woke me up. And if she had not woken me up, I would be inside and I would have got killed by now. So this village girl, I don't know why she woke me up, but for whatever reason she woke me up, I have now saved my life. It has saved my life. So he says, I should thank her. So he sees her in the distance. Now she has gone some distance. So he runs behind. He says, stop. He just wants to say thank you. So he goes behind. She doesn't just stop. So he then sees her as he's going. She enters the temple. So he says, now I'll go inside and I'll go and get her out. And there was a rule that, the temple, up to a certain point, outsiders can go. Beyond that, only Brahmins can enter. That's the tradition that we've had, right? So beyond a certain point, only Brahmins and certain people who are worshipping in the temple, they can go. So he goes to that point and then he cannot go further. But she has gone inside. She has gone fully inside. So he wants to. So he goes and stands there and he calls the priest. The priest comes and he talks to the priest. He says, look, there was a girl who has just gone inside. Please call her. I want to talk to her. So the priest goes and sees there's nobody inside in the temple. He says, no, just now she went. I saw her going. She describes her. He says, the priest says, was she wearing this dress? He says, yes. Then the priest says, did she have this complexion? He gives him some clues. He says, yes, exactly, that girl. He says, okay, come. He opens the curtain and he sees the deity. He says, this deity has protected you. She has saved you. He looks at Bhavani, Mother Bhavani, and says, she came and saved my life. The priest says that you are a very fortunate soul. Nobody gets this kind of blessing from this mother. She came personally and she woke you up. So the plaque was describing the crown that is placed on the head of that deity. It's a golden crown, a very beautiful crown. It says that that crown was gifted by the collector. The collector said, mother has saved me and all my wealth I should give for her. And he made a beautiful crown and gave it to the temple to adorn. So that crown is used on certain festival days on which the deity is taken out and so on. That story was there. So this way, Leela, Bhagavan's Leela, Bhagavan comes in different forms and performs different types of Leela with bhaktas even now. And when we go to these temples, some of these temples, they narrate these kind of tales about in Guruvayur. If you go to Guruvayur, if you go to Tirupati also, you'll hear so many of these things. Puri, Jagannath Puri.
So, sir, in today's shloka, the path, the Shukla path mentions, in the shloka it mentions the Brahman. And so we earlier talked about 5 different types of mukti, wherein Vaikuntha was different from Brahman. So, are these the same different?
Yeah, in the shloka, see, Vishwanath Chakravarti interprets that shloka in a more basic way. He says that this 6 shlokas, actually they are referring to the Yoga Mishra Bhakta, the Jnani Bhakta who is not taking the path of ananya bhakti. He's taking the path of a Yoga Mishra Bhakti. So he could be anywhere like a pure Bhakta. Ultimately, he could get pure Bhakti, Ananya Bhakti, or he could be at the stage of a Jnani who performs Bhakti only to get Mukti, whose only objective is to get Mukti and then finally attain Brahma, realization of Brahma and not be born again. So it could cover any of these kinds of, this whole spectrum of people, whole spectrum of yogis. So if that word Brahma is used to refer to that impersonal form of Sri Bhagavan, then you can take it as referring to that Jnani. It can apply to that Jnani. If you take Brahma, because Brahma and Bhagavan are the same actually. They're just 2 different names of the same entity called Bhagavan. Brahma, Paramatma, Bhagavan. All 3 names are synonymous. refer to the same person. So if you interpret Brahma to mean that, then you can take it to mean the Krishna of Goloka Vrindavan also. He is also Brahma, whichever way. So that shloka lends itself to an interpretation across a wide spectrum of people.
Sir, in which lokas do we get the 5 different types of mukti?
This is not in the Bhagavad-Gita. It is from the Puranas, one of the Puranas. I'll get you the exact reference. So it's there in the Vyakhyas, in the commentaries, they frequently refer to these 5 types of mukti, particularly in this Sampradaya, in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, the Vyakhyas. I'll get you the reference for where these 5 types of mukti are described. Anyone else has any question? Shall we close?
So this is Arjuna here, sir.
Yes, Arjuna, you have a...
Sir, actually, I remember, I recall a story I have read long time back, something similar to the one that you narrated just now, sir.
Yes.
So this takes place about, and I don't know the specifics of the story, but something it happened. Britisher fighting in Afghanistan, sir, and his family was here somewhere in central India, somewhere near Bhopal, that area. Okay, I mean, don't take the names, locations. I might be completely wrong on the location, but the essence is, so this person had gone to, the Britisher had gone to fight in Afghanistan, and there was no news about the person. So those days we didn't have mobile or telecommunications, anything like that. So his wife was very worried, as in what has happened. We don't know. My husband has gone for such a long time, and I have not heard back anything so far. So what has happened? And then uh, she had a maid in her house, and the maid said, "Please pray to Lord Shiva." And then she started praying to Lord Shiva. So after praying, and she continuously prayed to Lord Shiva, going to the temple and something like that. And then, sir, the husband came back. The husband came back after some time. The husband came back, and he said that all of a sudden, in the middle of the war, in the battlefield, I saw a person with very long hair, with a trident in hand, and who came and fought for us, and somehow we are saved in the war. And then he narrated the story about Shiva. So it looks something like the way we know Lord Shiva as. So then she said, yes, I prayed to a Lord who had similar characteristics. So it said, I mean, if I remember correctly, sir, I might be completely wrong, but if it said that based on the story, there was a temple near Bhopal that's called Bhojpur. It's called the Bhojpur temple, and it is the biggest shivling in India. So something like that. So the story goes like this. So this is what happened. Similar these things happened, sir, some time back, sir.
Yeah, you can verify it by Googling on it. Maybe the name of the temple. I mean, the story is definitely very nice to hear. I'm talking about the name of the temple. You can Google on it later, and it's the same place.
Sir.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Does anyone have anything else to say, or shall we close for today? Okay. I'll chant the Antyamangalam. Om Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahishaah Gobrahmanebhyo Shubhamastu Nityam Lokas Samastah Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Tad Vishno Paramam Padagum Sada Pashyanti Surayah Divi Vachakshuratatam Tad Vipraso Vipanyavo Jagruvagum Sassamindhate Vishno Yat Paramam Padam Paryaptya Anantarayaya Sarvastamotiraatra Uttamahat Bhavati Sarvasyaptyai Sarvasya Jityai Sarvameva Tena Apnoti Sarvam Jayati. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. धन्यवाद. पुनर्मिलामः.